It's a little bit weird because I think I'm a bit skeptical of, some of the things that goes around about Xbox. And it's strange to me because you have like an Xbox fan like me who likes the console, who talks about the console, likes console games, only plays on consoles. And then you have like this other group of people that cheerlead Microsoft no matter what they do, and they'll cheerlead if Microsoft gets, like a sales milestone or something does well on another platform. Like all of a sudden, there's like these Xbox fans, quote unquote, that will cheer that Call of Duty did well or something along those lines, and that was always kind of funny to me, right? Like because I've never heard of publishing fanboy, so to speak, right? Like people that go, oh man, Ubisoft really kicked some ass today, or whatever the case may be. You never really hear EA, man, really, they really got it going. You know what I'm saying? It's like usually if you're gonna pimp something out or talk something up, it's gonna be one of the platforms or whatever. If you're an Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo fan, PC fan, whatever the case may be, you're going to usually stick to that. But Xbox doesn't really make that easy on their fans because they don't really have any exclusives or anything along those lines to kind of help out at that sort of respect. But when I look at this, I think there's probably some people that are taking this as good news. There's probably some people who like me don't necessarily believe this news, but I'm going to report it anyway. According to this, an analysis group has said that Forza Horizon 5 hit a milestone on PS5, surpassing 5 million in sales. If that's to be accurate, of course, it's just an estimate. It would have generated $300 million in revenue. I'm going to get into all this pretty quickly. So this is according to Alinea Analytics, who claimed on social media that the PS5 version of Forza Horizon recently surpassed 5 million sales on the platform. Quote, Xbox's move to third party is no mystery, especially given Microsoft's lofty profitability mandates. Forza Horizon 5 was released in PS5 in April of last year, nearly 4 years after its initial launch on Xbox. Microsoft does not share sales figures for its games, but it claimed that Forza Horizon 5 reached 20 million players across Xbox and PC in under 7 months. At the time of this, Forza Horizon 5's Hall of Fame leaderboard, which shows the player's total score compared to everyone who's ever played the game, gives a total of around 53.7 million players. However, again, the majority of these players likely did not purchase the game. Forza Horizon series has long been one of Xbox's most popular, with Playground's founder Gavin Rowbaum claiming last year that Horizon makes more money than rivals Gran Turismo, F1, Need for Speed, and The Crew combined. Since 2024, Xbox has been actively releasing its biggest games on PlayStation, and these alleged sales numbers suggest that the strategy is paying off in revenue. The next Forza Horizon game is Forza Horizon 6. It's due later this year. According to Microsoft, they've already announced that it will arrive on PS5 after Xbox and PC. Now, here's the things I want to get into for a second. Let's pretend just for a second that they did sell 5 million, right? And 300 million would be the revenue. First of all, take 90 million of that and give it to PlayStation because that's their cut. After that, you take away any money that Microsoft spent on porting the game, so whatever they paid the port studio and whatever they advertised and things like that, all that kind of stuff, you have to pay to kind of, if you want something on the store or whatever, advertise it on their store, whatever the case may be. So all this stuff has to be kind of paid for, the licenses, all this stuff is paid for. So, definitely that number wouldn't be good. Let's just, have that. So if it was, maybe they made 100 million off that, and people might go, well, that's a lot of money. Was that really worth throwing your brand away for? Because no doubt Forza Horizon 5, in my opinion, has been a hit on PlayStation 5, right? I think it's probably sold a couple million copies personally. But is that worth throwing your entire brand away? Because let's go down the list. Hellblade 2 completely tanked on PlayStation. Pentiment tanked on PlayStation. Flight Simulator tanked on PlayStation. Indiana Jones tanked on PlayStation. Doom: The Dark Ages tanked on PlayStation. Let's see, where else can we go with this? Grounded tanked. Hi-Fi Rush tanked. Gears of War Reloaded tanked. So, the only two games that you could say had decent kind of times on the PlayStation were Sea of Thieves and Forza Horizon 5. Now, no doubt that Halo will sell well, even for the novelty of it, right? And, the next Forza Horizon game will sell well. But like they already announced stuff like Avowed and Towerborn and South of Midnight. Those games are all going to completely tank on PlayStation. Like Microsoft is in this weird thing where they'll release probably 10 games on PlayStation this year, but it's one of the busiest years, and people could have already played those games of various other ways. I don't really, So anyway, you could look at it that way. The other thing I would say is we know from the NPD or Circana Group now, as they're known, they list the top 10 best-selling PlayStation games of 2025, and Forza Horizon wasn't on it. So, we're only in January of this year. So where did they sell all these copies at? Because we know like Ghost of Yotei sold like 3 point some million copies or whatever, and probably half that in the States to be in the top 10. I think at like number 7 best-selling game or whatever, or 6. And so under 2 million in the States that sold. And they're trying to say Forza Horizon 5 sold 5 million, where the only places it would have sold would have been like in the UK or the US, and we know that it didn't sell a bunch in the US. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to like doubt it. I think that there's two ways to look at this. Like, no doubt it's been a success in terms of, hey, it's a 5-year-old game and it sold a couple million units. That's probably looked at as, a pretty big success. What I'm trying to say is I don't necessarily look at, even if it was a success, as necessarily a good thing, because you don't want them to kind of go and in my opinion, I'd want them to sort of rethink all the games and things like that going to other platforms. Like you would want them to kind of make things a little bit more well-rounded on Xbox, right? Like, okay, well, let's rethink things and let's try and get things working in a way that people can actually want our console and go to our console. Like that's to me would be the way to kind of go about things, is get people excited about your console again. And I know it's like, well, their Xbox is everything now, and people brag about that point, but that doesn't make any sense, because when you look at their players or whatever, their players are exactly the same, their monthly active users, that they were before they bought Activision, just with Activision on top of their own. So they haven't really grown anything. What I'm trying to say is, like, having all this available on a TV or on a mobile phone or whatever hasn't caused a big spike in users. It hasn't caused a spike in Game Pass subscribers. They haven't even announced numbers in years on Game Pass, and to be frank, they probably are losing subscribers after they raise the prices, for sure. At least people probably drop down, so I don't know. It's kind of like you got to look at these things with sort of a mixed bag. I'm kind of curious to hear what other people think about it, though. Like, do you guys think, hey, there is some kind of thing going on here? Maybe they did sell 5 million. I think there's no way that they did 5 million, because, like I said, we have the 10 best-selling games of last year just on PlayStation alone, and that would have certainly been enough to get them into the top 10. Because it would have had to sell a bunch, and it doesn't really look like they were able to kind of accomplish that. So again, we'll see what happens. But then you have like the fanboys that are like parading this kind of around town, going, oh, we'll see, they're the kings of this and things like that. And to be honest with you, that's sort of a weird take to me. Like, why are you bragging that Xbox is selling games on PlayStation? That's such a weird flex to me. Like, why are people trying to do that? And like that's some kind of own or something. That's sort of a weird situation, just in my opinion. You know what I mean? But hey, some people are just like, oh well, look, they get to they get to make more money, so they can put it into this or the other things. But what we've seen so far is that hasn't really worked out. I mean, even though they are supposedly making money across the board here, they aren't exactly doing things that that are indicative of that. They're still firing people, they're still closing studios, they're still they're still canceling games, they're still doing all these things. Like, they're realistically like they're realistically kind of doing something that really isn't going to be very helpful in the future. So I don't know. We'll see. Do you guys look at this stuff as a good news, as bad news, as you're indifferent with it? Like for me, I don't really know how to feel about it. Like Forza's already, I've already said this is the best racing game ever. I knew that it would be a success, but I also could look at their portfolio and know that outside of a handful of products, most of them won't be a success on PlayStation. And I think Microsoft is kind of flooding the PlayStation market with their own stuff, and that's part of the problem. So anyway, rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.